One of the most important questions you can ask is not only who you want to love, but who you are becoming in the process. I'm Coach Granny, and here we talk about love, life, self awareness, and the kind of becoming that leads to healthier relationships. If you're looking for grounded wisdom and honest reflection, you're in the right place. Today, we're exploring why knowing yourself is essential if you want to build healthy relationships. When people talk about relationships, most of the conversation centers around one question: how do I find the right person? Makes sense. People want love, they want companionship, they want honesty, connection, peace, and someone they can build with. They want to be seen, chosen, and understood. They spend a great deal of time thinking about who they want, and what kind of a relationship they hope to have. But they spend far less time asking whether they truly understand themselves well enough to recognize healthy love, receive it, sustain it, and participate in it. That is the question many people overlook, honestly. Because the truth is, relationships do not begin with another person. They begin with the self you bring into them. You, you. And if that self is disconnected, unclear, unhealed, or in the habit of abandoning its own truth, then even a promising relationship can become confusing, draining, or misaligned. That's why self awareness matters so deeply. The relationship you have with yourself shapes every other relationship in your life. It shapes what you tolerate, it shapes what you ignore, it shapes what you ask for and what you stay silent about. It shapes whether you trust your own instincts or override them. It shapes whether you move through love from clarity or from longing. Great many people are not struggling in relationships because they are incapable of love. They're struggling because they have not yet learned about themselves enough. They do not yet know what truly grounds them, what wounds they're carrying, what they need, what they fear, what they normalize, or what patterns they keep repeating. So they enter relationships hoping for connection while carrying confusion they have not named. That confusion eventually shows up. It may show up as overgiving, as people pleasing, as avoiding hard conversations, as becoming attached too quickly, as staying too long in what no longer fits. It may even show up as mistaking chemistry for safety or attention for love or longing for compatibility. And often, the person does not understand why it keeps happening. They think they're just unlucky. They think they keep meeting the wrong people, or that love is complicated and painful by nature. Sometimes the issue is not only who they're choosing, sometimes the issue is the lens they are choosing from. If you do not know yourself, you can misread what is in front of you. You can call something healthy when it's only familiar. You can call something loving when it is only intense, or call something hopeful when it is actually inconsistent. You can keep waiting for clarity from another person when your own inner knowing has already been trying to speak. This is one reason becoming matters so much. Becoming is not just growth in a vague or inspirational sense. It is not just about evolving, leveling up, or becoming more confident on the outside. Real becoming is deeper than that. It is a process of becoming more honest with yourself, more aware of your patterns, more conscious of your emotional life, more rooted in what is true for you, more able to tell the difference between what nourishes you and what merely occupies you. It is learning to live with greater alignment. And alignment changes relationships. When you're not aligned with yourself, you are much more likely to seek externally what you have not begun to build internally. You may look to relationships for identity, for validation, for reassurance, for worth, for emotional rescue, for proof that you matter. That puts enormous pressure on connection because no relationship can sustainably carry the full weight of a self you have not yet come home to. Another person can love you, they can support you, they can affirm you, they can walk beside you. But, honey, they cannot build your inner foundation for you. That work belongs to you. And when you begin doing that work, something shifts. You stop entering relationships just hoping to be chosen. You start becoming more thoughtful about whether the connection itself is healthy, mutual, and aligned. That is a very different posture. It's one thing to ask, do they want me? It's another thing to ask, is this relationship good for the person I'm becoming? That question changes everything. Because once you begin becoming more aware, your standards become less performative and more honest. You start noticing where you shrink. You start noticing where you become silent, where your body feels tense, your spirit feels unsettled, or your peace starts slipping away. You begin to recognize that not every connection deserves access just because it offers attention. Not every relationship deserves longevity just because it once felt meaningful. And not every bond is meant to grow with you if it was built on a version of you that no longer fits you. That is part of becoming too. And as you grow in self awareness, some of your relationships will deepen beautifully. Others will begin to feel strained, limited, or misaligned. That does not always mean someone is a bad person. It may simply mean that the relationship was built around an older version of you, a version that was more uncertain, more accommodating, more disconnected from your own needs, more willing to settle for less clarity and more confusion. When you begin to know yourself more deeply, that older way of relating becomes harder to maintain, and that can feel uncomfortable. Because becoming does not only bring clarity, it often brings loss, change, and difficult decisions. You may outgrow patterns, the need to be endlessly understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You may outgrow your tolerance for relationships that depend on your silence, self sacrifice, or emotional over functioning. That's true development. It is what happens when a person begins to honor their own inner life more seriously. And this does not apply just to romantic love. The relationship you have with yourself affects friendships, it affects family dynamics, work relationships, it affects how you show up in the community, how much resentment you carry, and how often you betray your own boundaries. If you don't know yourself, you may say yes when you mean no. You may confuse loyalty with self erasure. You may become the stable one in every room while quietly feeling unseen and overextended. You may keep performing strength while neglecting your own need for care. And because that becomes familiar, you may even realize how far you have drifted from yourself. And because that becomes familiar, you may not even realize how far you have drifted from yourself. That is why self awareness is not optional if you want healthy relationships. It's foundational. To know yourself is not to become self-absorbed. It is to become responsible. Responsible for your healing, your patterns, your communication, responsible for noticing what belongs to your past and what is actually happening in the present, responsible for learning how not to hand other people emotional assignments they did not create. This is mature love. Love is not just about affection. It's not just about attraction. It is not just about good intentions. It requires being able to say, this is what I need. It requires being able to recognize, this is what I do when I feel afraid. It requires a humility to admit, I have a pattern here. The courage to ask, am I reacting to this person or am I reacting to something older inside me? Those questions are not always easy, but they are powerful. They help you slow down enough to become truthful. And truthfulness with yourself is one of the greatest gifts you can bring into a relationship. You stop calling every emotional reaction intuition. You stop pretending not to know when something is not working. You stop making excuses for your own self-abandonment. That is deep work. And it's also liberating work. Because the more clearly you know yourself, the less likely you are to get lost in relationships that require you to keep betraying yourself in order to stay connected. You begin to notice when peace is missing. You begin to value reciprocity more than intensity. You begin to see boundaries, not as punishment, but as clarity. You begin to understand that healthy love is not built on confusion, guessing, or one person carrying the emotional load for two. You also become more compassionate. Self-awareness does not only help you relate better to yourself, it helps you to better relate to others. When you know your own wounds, you stop projecting them as easily. When you know your own triggers, you become less reactive and more reflective. When you understand your own fears, you become less likely to turn every moment of discomfort into a crisis. When you know what belongs to you, you stop making every emotional experience somebody else's fault. That deepens relationships. Becoming is not only about who you are becoming for yourself, it is also about who you are becoming in relationship to other people. Are you becoming someone who can listen without defensiveness? Are you becoming someone who can speak truth without cruelty? Are you becoming someone who can love without losing yourself? Are you becoming someone who can be honest about your needs without shame? Are you becoming someone who can recognize when a relationship is asking for growth and when it is simply asking too much? These are the questions that shape healthy connection. And they matter because many people want peaceful relationships while resisting the inward work that peace requires. Peace in relationships does not come only from finding the right person. It also comes from becoming more internally settled, more curious, more conscious, more accountable, more clear. That does not mean perfect. No one is perfect. It means present, present enough to notice your inner life, present enough to stop running from the truth just because the truth is inconvenient. If you are in a season of becoming, let it be a real one. Not just outward change, not just language, not just aspiration. Let it be inward. What have I learned about love that I need to examine more honestly? Where do I still lose myself in relationships? What do I need in order to feel safe, respected, and connected? What patterns have I normalized that no longer align with the life I say I want? What kind of relationship with myself am I building right now? However you answer that last question will affect everything else. If your relationship with yourself is built on criticism, neglect, disconnection, and avoidance, that'll show up. If your relationship with yourself is becoming more honest, more compassionate, and more grounded, that'll show up too. Knowing yourself is a part of love, part of friendship, part of family. It is part of the way you lead, the way you trust, the way you forgive, the way you protect your peace, and the way you participate in connection. You cannot build healthy relationships without knowing yourself because sooner or later, every relationship will meet the self you've been avoiding. And when that moment comes, you want to be someone who can stay present, someone who could tell the truth, who can grow without collapsing, who can love without disappearing. That is the work, becoming clearer, becoming wiser, becoming more at home within yourself. And when you become more at home within yourself, your relationships change. You stop begging to be understood by people who do not want to understand. You stop over explaining what your spirit has already made clear. You start choosing relationships that can hold truth, reciprocity, steadiness, and room to grow. That is what becoming makes possible. So before you focus only on who you are trying to find, take some time to consider who you are becoming. Because the healthiest relationships are not built only by finding the right person. They are built by becoming more truthful, more grounded, and more deeply known to you, to yourself. And from that place, you are far more able to build something real with someone else. I want you to sit with that this week. What have your relationships been teaching you about your relationship with you? And as you continue becoming, what is one truth you know you need to stop avoiding? If this spoke to you, share it with someone who may be in a season of becoming too. Invite them into this space to learn and grow together. This is Coach Granny, still sharing, still learning, still growing, and still telling the truth. Until the next time, peace, love, and joy. That's what you are. So be you.